Today's live lesson is on sigma notation. And the objectives, well, you will be able to find the sum of an arithmetic series using sigma notation, and you will be able to find the sum of a geometric series using sigma notation. And this is what sigma is, this funky little Greek letter. And on the bottom, it will tell you where the series is going to begin, at what number. And up here, we're doing finite, so it will tell us where it's going to end. This right here is going to give us the arithmetic or geometric series that we're going to use. And this kind of makes a lot more sense when we're actually working problems. So I'm going to start with arithmetic series. And up here at the top, this is the formula for finding an arithmetic series. Your S sub n is how far, the series, what sum of 6 numbers, 10 numbers. You plug this number in here, divide by 2, and you have to add the first number and the last number in the series. So in sigma notation here, it tells us that we're going to start with n equals 1, and we want to do n equals 2, equals 3, 4, 5, 6, and then add all those numbers up. That'd take a long time. So there's got to be an easier way. And there is this formula right here. And we need the first term and the last term. So n equals 1 is the first term, and n equals 6 is the last. So we're going to plug in those numbers and simplify. So 10 times 1 is 10, minus 5 is 5. Now we're going to do 6. 10 times 6, excuse me, is 60, minus 5 is 55. So we have the first term and we have the last term. Now we're going to plug them into here. Now, if you were to take and count this out, n equals 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. That's going to be your n. Some, I know you've seen, oh, you do 6 minus 1, that's 5, and add 1. And that is handy when n is not 1. So we're starting with the basic ones. So we're going to plug this into our formula. So S sub 6, because that is the sum of all 6 terms. So 6 divided by 2, the first term is 5, the last term is 55. So 5 and 55 is 60, and 6 divided by 2 is 3, and 3 times 60 is 180. That is a lot easier than finding when n is 1, n is 2, n is 3, n is 4, n is 5, n is 6, and then adding them all up. Because would you want to do that with 1 to 40? It wouldn't be too bad with the n equals 6, but I wouldn't want to do n equals 40. So we're going to do the same thing here. Our first term will be when we substitute this number, 1. So 4 times 1 is 4, plus 1 is 5. That's our a sub 1. In this case, our a sub n is going to be our a sub 40, because that's the last term of the series. So 4 times 40 is 160, plus 1 is 161. So we're wanting to find, when this is 1, you can just use the top number. So the sum of all 40 numbers, so you do 40 divided by 2, the first term and the last term, which is 5 plus 161. Simplify, 40 divided by 2 is 20. 5 plus 161 is 166. And when you multiply those, you get 3,320. And those are the answers. So I really don't think you'd want to plug in 1, plug in 2, 3, all the way to 40 and add all those numbers up. This is a lot faster. Okay, we're going to do 2 more like this, where in this case, K is 1. And we'll do the same thing. And this is where I would hope if you're watching the recording, you pause the recording and see if you can work these 2 by yourself. And then see if you get it. So when we plug in 1, 2 times 1 is 2, plus 5 is 7. And that gives us our a sub 1. That's the first term. Now we need to find a sub 10. So we're going to do 2 times 10, which is 20, plus 5 is 25. And then use our formula as sub n. So I'm going to have 10 divided by 2. My first term is 7. My last term is 25. And then simplify. 10 divided by 2 is 5. 7 plus 25 is 32. And 5 times 32 is 160. And there's your answer. Could you have done 2 times 1 plus 5, plus 2 times 2 plus 5, plus 2 times 3 plus 5, all the way to 10 and add them up? Yes, you could. But this is a lot easier. Our first term is 1. Our last term would be when K is 13. So substitute 1. 9 times 1 is 9. Minus 15 is negative 6. So there's our first term. 9 times 13 minus 5. And some of these, as you get, some higher numbers, you may need your calculator. You may or may not. So that is 117 minus 15 gives you 102. And that is your a sub 13. So now plug into your formula. Your n is 13. So 13 divided by 2, your first term is negative 6. Your last is 102. 13 divided by 2 is 6.5, and negative 6 plus 102 is 96. Multiply that 96 and 6.5, and you get 624. And you have the sum of all the numbers from k equals 1 to k equals 13. So the first 4 problems, you saw that the series started at 1, ended at 6. Started at 1, ended at 40, started at 1, ended at 10, started at 1, ended at 13. Now we're going to look at when it doesn't start at 1. So your n's not going to be 9. So we're going to start with k equals 3. So a sub 3 equals 2 times 3, which is 6, and 6 minus 10 is negative 4. We're going to also have to do a sub 9. So 2 times 9 is 18, and 18 minus 10 is 8. And this is where if you do 9 minus 3, is our n going to be 6? Let's see. So starting at 3, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So your n is 7. That's why when it's other than 1, you subtract and add 1. So 9 minus 3 is 6, plus 1 is 7. Or you can do little tick marks. So we're finding S sub 7. We're going to do 7 divided by 2. Add the third term, which that is the first term in the series. I shouldn't have said third term because that's when k equals 3. This is the first term, but we're doing it starting at 3. And I'll write that so you realize you're not at 1, because if I don't, then I start seeing the 9 here. And negative 4 plus 8 is 4. 7 times 4 is 28, divided by 2 is 14. And here's your answer. So in this case, this is the first term. And this is the last term. and that is when k equals 3 and k equals 9. Now the same thing here. We're going to plug in 4 to find a sub 4. So 4 times 4 is 16, minus 10 is 6. We're going to do the same with 16. A sub 16, so 4 times 16 is 64, minus 10 is 54. So here's where you found the first term in the series, and here is the last term, which is the nth term. And if we do 16 minus 4, we get 12. Let's see if we add 1 to get 13. So we're going to start with 4 and go to 16. 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16. So that's 5, 10, 11, 12, 13. So if you don't remember to add 1, make sure you do the tick marks. So we're finding S sub 13. So we're in S but 13. Our first term is 6. Our last term is 54. 6 plus 54 is 60. You can do 60 divided by 2 and then times 13, or you can do 13 times 60 divided by 2. It doesn't matter. 390 is your answer. So that is the sum of the 13 numbers. Okay, this was arithmetic. And now we're doing geometric, and the formula is different. So the sum of the n terms in the series, first term minus first term, times the ratio to the nth power, and then 1 minus r. So this one also, and with these, we will be starting them at 1. So if you plug 1 in here, a sub 1 equals 2 to the 1 minus 1 is 0. Anything to the 0 power is 1. Now, when you write this right here is a sub 1 times the ratio. So, and then what they have here, it can be different, but let me write that a little neater. That's going to tell you this is the same as this. And although we plug that in, the first term is 1 and the ratio is 2. And this is 1, so you're finding the sum of the 7 terms in this geometric series. So the first term is 1. So 1 minus 1 straight from the formula. R is 2 to the 7th power all over 1 minus 2. Be careful here because you have to follow order of operations. So the first thing you're going to do is that 2 to the 7th. So 2 to the 7th is 128. Notice I still have the 1 minus 1. You can simplify the denominator. 1 minus 2 is negative 1. Okay, now you're going to take and do negative 1 times 128. So now you have 1 minus 128 divided by negative 1. Do 1 minus 128, that is negative 127 divided by negative 1 is positive 127. I see problems all the time in this right here. This is the trouble section. You can't subtract the ones because you got to do exponents first. And when you get that, you need to make sure you multiply it by the negative 1. Then you do 1 minus. If you do it 128 minus 1, it's going to come out positive instead of negative. So your answer would be off here. Okay, here, this is the same thing as 1 times 3 to the k minus 1. So if you plugged in 1, 3 to the 1 minus 1 is 3 to the 0. Anything to the 0 power equals 1. So here's your first term, and here's your r. your ratio is 3. So plug in 1 and 3 in the formula. Do 3 to the 10th first, and the 10 came from n equals 10. 3 to the 10th is 59,049. Now be careful here because you've got to multiply -1 times that. You can simplify the denominator. 1 minus 3 is -2. So all I did here was multiply negative times a positive, so you're subtracting that. So now in your calculator, do 1 minus 59,049. That's going to give you negative 59,048. Divide by -2, and you will get your answer, which is 29,524. So for both of these, in a geometric series, you have found the sum of the numbers from 1 to 7. So you're not having to plug in 1, then 2, then 3, all the way up and add them all up. And the same thing here. So doing a geometric series here, we're doing 1 to 10. So here's your a sub 1, and here's your r. So if you're getting the hang of that, your a sub 1 is 3, your r is 2. And you can go plug them right here. Now, if you want to plug the 1 in to make sure, 3 times 2 to the 1 minus 1, well, 1 minus 1 is 0, and anything to the 0 power is 1, and 3 times 1 is 3. So that's always going to be your a sub 1, and this is your r. And 10 terms. So s sub 10, 3 minus 3, 2 to the 10th, all over 1 minus 2. So you can simplify 2 to the 10th is 1,024. And in the denominator, 1 minus 2 is -1. Now multiply the -3 times 1,024. And that gives you 3 minus 3,072. Divide by -1. So 3 minus 3,072 is -3,069. Divide by -1, and you get 3,069. If you're coming up with a negative number, you made a mistake because you're adding nothing but positive numbers. So you can't get a negative sum. Okay, here we're going from the first term to the 8th. There's your a sub 1, there's your r. You should be remembering this from the the geometric explicit, or a sub 1 times r to the n minus 1. See, that's the formula. So there's your first term, there's your ratio. If you want to plug the 1 in, you're going to always have 0 here, and anything to the 0 power is 1. So -4 times 1 is -4. But you don't have to do this. We know that it's -4. So now substitute into your formula. Pull that down, make sure you can see it. So a sub 1 minus a sub 1, use parentheses. The minus in the formula does not take the place of the negative that's with the 4. Your n is 8, 3 to the 8, that's your ratio, and 1 minus 3. So you can simplify 3 to the 8 and get 6,561. And you can simplify 1 minus 3 and get -2. Okay, now I multiplied -4 times 6,561. That gave me -26,244. And a negative times a negative is positive. So -4 plus 26,244 is 26,240. Now divide by -2. And your answer is -13,120. So the only ones you're going to work with geometric summation is starting with 1. I will double check, but I didn't see any in the lesson starting with anything other than 1, but you would do them just like we did the arithmetic, just use the geometric formulas. So our a sub 1 is -2 and our r is 1. To see if it's something other than 1, then you're going to have to plug in to get the first term. So a sub 1 is -2. And the ratio is 2, and then plug into the formula S sub n equals a sub 1 minus a sub 1 times r to the n, whoops, all over 1 minus r. So if there's your -2 minus, put in parentheses -2, your ratio is 2, it's to the 7th, and then 1 minus 2. Simplify the 2 to the 7th and get 128. You can simplify the 1 minus 2 and get -1. Then -2 times 128 is -256. So that's -2. When you subtract a negative, that is the same as adding, because a negative times a negative is positive. So -2 plus 256 is 254. Divide by -1, and you get -254. Okay, so up here, our a sub 1 is 4, and our r is 2. So in the formula, you're finding the sum of 7 terms. A sub 1 is 4 minus a sub 1 is 4. Your ratio is 2 into the 7th. And the denominator, 1 minus r, so 1 minus 2. 2 to the 7th. Oops, I have a typo. That should be 128. Okay, I'll make sure everything else is also correct. And then I'm going to do -4 times 128, and that should give me minus 512. Awesome, so it was just that one place. And I did simplify the denominator. Now do 4 minus 512. That gives you -508. -508 divided by -1. And that gives you positive 508. I'm going to just double check the math there. So yes, your answer is 508. I'll write that a little neater here. So I had 2 typos there. So let's go back over what you've learned, what you should be able to do. You have learned how to find the sum of an arithmetic series using sigma notation, starting at 1 and going to a number, and starting at a number other than 1 and going to a number. And you've also been able to learn how to find the sum of a geometric series starting at 1 and going to a number, because these are finite geometric series. That's what you have found. I will double check. I didn't see any in the lesson where they went where this was different other than 1. I will double check, and if so, I will make a little additional video to put in the recorded help session. I hope this has helped you. If you have any questions, please text or call me.